select board workshop, I guess, to order. It is 2:30, May 19th, 2026. All right, where do we start?
Discussion with Master.
Yeah, we're having a discussion related to Key Field and where we are now. I'm not sure who should go first, if the select board. Oh, yes, sorry. Note, this meeting is being televised, streamed, or recorded by Bourne TV. If anyone in the audience is recording or videotaping, they need to acknowledge at this time. Mr. Mike Roush, Bourne Enterprise. All items on the meeting agenda are subject to deliberation and vote. Thank you for the reminder.
Okay.
Long day. All right, yeah, I mean, I don't know, this is a continuance of the discussion we recently had related to Key Field and the access and the pathway and the parking lot. So I'm not sure where we want to start. If the select board would like to speak, say some comments, or if the mascot would like to kind of go first, related to, I know we received a letter.
Would the recommending like to?
The committee or anyone?
Do you have any comment? Where do you want to start? Otherwise, I would say we can pick up where we left off.
It's okay.
Yeah, it was Marlene.
We can go around and get comments from everyone. We're just, we're here today to
Yeah, I don't think we have to go
our
first.
conversation, so I don't know.
But thank
I'll start with the select board. Why don't
Maybe
I-
just wrap up as it stands now, because the public, not all the public may know about the MassDOT's letter or even the Recreation Committee's recommendation, so perhaps we can start
Yeah.
there with MassDOT's letter. And
Yeah.
that's just the summative of it, you
Yeah.
can just summarize it if you want.
Well, I mean, I'd like them to summarize that, the letter. That would be great.
The first letter or the second?
Well, we just received
The more recent
the
one.
more recent letter.
Prior to this
Yes.
meeting.
Yes.
The letter of withdrawing from the parking.
That's something else.
No,
That's okay.
Right.
That's
I didn't
fine.
consider that a letter, I just considered it information for today's meeting.
Exactly.
Yes. I just wanted- what was
Maybe a withdrawal letter,
Yeah.
Louisa, from May 12th.
Okay. All right. I think you've met our team before, James, David, and Kennedy, Cape Cod Project Manager. I'm Louisa Paiewski from SDOT Mega Projects Delivery. Thank you for having us back. This has been a really productive series of conversations, and I think we're getting to where we all want to be to help move the project forward and address the town's desires and concerns around Key Field. So after our last meeting that we had with you, we reflected on comments that we heard from you. We heard from select board members, from town administrator, from the police chief, and from members of the recreation committee, as well as local residents. And as we reflected on it, we heard pretty overwhelming concern about our proposal to replace the informal parking at Keith Field with formal parking across the street. So we decided that rather than try to keep tilting at windmills, that we would simply withdraw that proposal so that we could focus on solutions that worked for the town and for us. So we hope that was received in the spirit in which we intended it, to take off the table anything that caused concern on the part of the town so that we could move the project forward. We have two hopes for today. One is we want to get some agreement in principle on the link itself between Salem Road and the Canal Service Road. And we want to roll up our sleeves and continue to work with the town. We heard Marlene was kind enough to share the letter from the Recreation Committee. We saw a lot that we really liked and we thought that we could work with on that. That's a slightly longer period of time to work out the details, but we thought in concept there was a lot of positive, suggested, constructive additions to the conversation. And we thought this is exactly what we talked about last time. We were talking about, one, we needed to move forward with the 4F conceptual agreement, and two, we wanted to continue the discussion about how do we address the town's need for a more community sensitive, community and context sensitive approach around Sandwich Road and Keith Field. So we thought that our letter would help put to rest any proposals that cause concern, and the town committee's letter kind of opened the door for further discussion. And as I said, we found a lot to like there, and we are more than happy to continue those discussions. And we need the town's sort of assent and informal agreement that it agrees with the proposal to have a bicycle pedestrian link continuing in the project.
Okay.
Sure.
You want to go first, Peter? Sure.
Your heart's in the right place. I know you're trying to give something back to the community for what we're going to be putting up with over the next 10 plus years once construction starts. But it's just the parking lot just wasn't going to work where it was proposed. I think that was pretty obvious. I know people were really concerned about family with young kids, but people just not paying attention, just going across the street. Even though you're going to have a delineated, crosswalk with lights in the whole 9 yards, people they're not patient. They just think they can outbeat traffic and then run across the road like the video game Frogger. And it just wasn't the right idea. Wasn't the right parking lot for that area. I am happy with the walkway that's being proposed. I do concur with the Recreation Committee's list of conditions on it, and making sure that it's ADA compliant. And I'm gonna let them go into the letter. It's their letter. But I also think that, yes, we're getting 2 brand new bridges out of this when they're all said and done. But we're taking the brunt of it over the next 10 plus years, because where we are, ground zero, we're right where all this work is happening. And so when we're asking for mitigation or asking for something in return, it's because we're going to be the ones sitting in traffic. We're going to be the ones that are going to be, because we're going to be late for work, or it's the noise issues. The list can go on and on. So we want to get something for all that we're going to be putting up with. I mean, and the end result will be well worth it. Don't get me wrong. And with the new access roads, and different infrastructure around the Bourne and Sagamore Bridge, it will lessen congestion. So of course it will be a lot better than what today's situation is. But I am of the opinion that we should be looking for some sort of mitigation for us having to deal with all this. Because with the way town budgets are right now, it's impacting people's pocketbooks and jobs in the whole 9 yards. And so if we can get something for it to take the stress away from the community, it will go a long way.
Jean, MJ, Henry, you all speak first.
I looked long and hard at a lot of angles to try to figure out the best case to solve, the issue. I agree that parking just doesn't belong across the street in any way, shape, or form. Even if we got to push button, stop the lights, stop traffic, it just lends itself to some safety issues. And then looking at Keith Field and looking at the recreation's recommendations through the feasibility study and the wants and the needs, right, of that particular field that we are trying to actually bring into the 21st century. I thought, can we flip the field, right? Can we just move the home plate in the opposite corner? Would we have room? Could we shift it? Would that put more parking? So I even did my little overlays, married to an architect, so I have lots of scrap paper and tissue and tracing paper. But I don't think it would fit regulation, and I'm not sure if the Recreation Committee looked at that, right? Moving home plate into the opposite, and what, because I think we could gain parking on that side of the tennis court area. But that was one of, I'm just giving you all the thoughts that ran through my head. And then, looking at, these are through the feasibility study, through the recreation committee, what they presented to you in this letter was pretty much some of what we had hoped to accomplish with that field. So I think it's not too much to ask, given, the sacrifices that we have to make as a community for several years. I think access to the canal is vitally important, not just for, physical use, but for health and well-being of the community, right? People use that canal every thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of people use that service road and need and want access, whether it's through transportation to a job or, mental health reasons, livelihood. We have people who fish that canal every day, and they're hoping to catch something for dinner. So it's just a huge piece of community for us, and we need access, right? And we need safe access. Now, originally, this came up because it was just going to be temporary, correct? Because of construction and having a detour. Was that the initial, right? But then at what point did it become more permanent?
Well, I think we had a meeting in this room a while back, and it was, I think, general consensus that once it's in place and is receiving use, that people are just going to like it and want it and get used to it and not want it to disappear.
Okay. Yeah. I would be, like I said, I don't think the Recreation Committee is asking for too much here. And if that is something that we can all agree to and that's feasible, and obviously we have some questions to answer, right? Whether what the asks can truly happen, that would be a direction that I would be amicable to. But I'd like to hear from the Recreation Committee and how strongly they feel with the asks.
Overall, I feel that the select board is being asked to make decisions in silence. We're asked to make a decision about donating the Sagamore Fire Station field. We're asked to make a decision about this parking lot. I don't even know what's on the agenda for the Conservation Commission on Thursday night. I have not seen any of the materials for the Conservation Commission meeting. It has to do with shutting down, I believe, something about the North Canal service road. I don't know what's happening with the South Canal service road. So we're talking about this little piece of information without having a full context of how this community is going to be impacted during construction of the bridges and after. So, first of all, I will say that I think that the permanent pedestrian bicycle link from Sandwich Road to the South Canal service line, I think that is definitely something we should be pursuing. I think it will help the community in the long run. I think it will help the community in the short one. So that is something that I can say that I totally support that concept and would be willing to vote that I totally support that concept. I am not ready to sign off on a de minimis letter. I don't even think it's within the scope of the agenda anyway today. Until we know what the impacts are. I mean, I don't know where I can go and look at and say what the plans are, and that's really troublesome to me. If the one ask is getting agreement on the permanent bicycle pedestrian path link, I'm totally willing to support that. I think it's in the best interest. What else we need to do around that? What else we need to do about Keith Field? In the drawings that we had with the letter or with Andy was the first letter. There's no drawings of the impacts of the project along Sandwich Road, which we know is gonna impact parking. I don't even know what's planned there. It's supposed to be 3 lanes. I don't know what that means. Is it a bicycle lane or two lanes? I don't know because I haven't seen the drawing. I looked at these sketches that we got around Keith Field, and there's dotted lines towards Keith Field. There's a facility entrance that's an automobile facility entrance. I don't know who owns that. I don't know if that's town land. I don't know if it's owned by someone else with an easement. I don't know. So these, detail person, I thought about, pulling up Mass GIS and trying to overlay things, but I don't have an architect for husband, so that's beyond my
I'll
capability.
give you my tracing paper.
Yeah, so, I think we're moving in the right direction. I think the recommendations of the Recreation Committee were really helpful, because these are things that are gonna be impacted, and we're going to need to address them. So I totally support the things that they've asked for. I just think we need to have a more comprehensive picture of the various impacts on the community and how they're going to be addressed or not addressed. And we've had someone come to our public comment a couple times talking about the town having a memorandum of understanding with MassDOT, and I think that's what we need to work towards. I think MassDOT, I think you all have a totally comprehensive understanding of what the impacts are and how, you're trying to address them. I still don't understand the impacts. I know that early on in the project, it was stated that, service roads were going to be closed to the duration of construction. And then there were some public comments, no, that wasn't, they were going to do workarounds. So I don't know. So, I feel that I need to have a better understanding. But in terms of the bike path, I'm totally in support. I would be in the
Well, I agree with what everyone said. I do support the rec committee's requests. As far as what we're here to discuss today, as the shared use path, the access proposed, I think that's vital and necessary. And I think MJ is touching upon what I've tried to express too, is that this is impacting, everything is happening to us at once. So yes, it's this small area, and meanwhile, fish are running, people are going up and down, the kids are on bikes, and that happens on both sides of the canal all the time, and we're connected by the canal, even though it separates us. So yes, the shared use path, desire to come to a conclusion, I think we're definitely all on the same page as far as that goes, it sounds like. And continuing to work on the ideas, I think that, we have to pull back a little bit and see what's going on. No, we don't have a clear idea of what's going on with what's left of Sandwich Road. As the letter, the draft letter, under, I'm not sure what page it is, and number 3, it says restore landscape. All it says is following construction completion and establishment of state highway layout, natural resource restoration would return lawns and disturbed areas to pre-construction condition. That says a lot for what really could be happening now. That doesn't talk about the sides of the road, the curbs, the width, all the details that MJ was talking about that we're concerned with, which is why, I am not opposed to entertaining the idea that Marlene had brought up at the last meeting, is the state doesn't have that within their scope of work, and the town maintains some ownership. Because then we can have better access and ideas for what we can do with parking and help with the rec committee and their desires. But their desires are very important. This is a field we're talking about, so I think that's what we really need to discuss too.
I think I won't reiterate everything that's been said. Of course, the shared use path is something we support. I think the parking lot, I'm not entirely convinced that there shouldn't be some parking lot, even if it was across the street, but it would be for the shared use path. It's too bad there wasn't a way to talk to that owner and be able to use that parking lot that's existing somehow for the shared use path. And then Marlene's, talk about us controlling the other area where we could still use the parking along Route 6. So I'm not completely, convinced we don't need the parking lot. I feel like it's going to cause an issue in itself, but of course we support the shared use path. And then, you know, again, having children crossing the street, that is a problem, and an issue we've all talked about, and, you know, and many of our citizens have expressed, you know, concern with that. So, again, I think, you know, the shared use path is necessary for many reasons, the detour, which we could talk about the north side. That is an issue. We've heard this from our citizens, and we've been even heard, you know, that we haven't really addressed that, you know. So again, there's a lot of unknowns, like MJ had, you know, had mentioned here, that we're still not clear on. So you know, again, I share what my fellow select board members have said, but I do worry a bit about having a shared use path with no parking for it. So I just want to add that. So now I will divert to the rec committee for your comments and thoughts on this as well, to address myself.
When we met, we just spoke about the path, and we all thought that was important, even though we'd be giving up our idea of a batting cage and a bullpen, which that field doesn't have. They said, you know, for the community to use it. One of the things we couldn't discuss fully because we didn't know what the plan was that going to be that access by Keith Field and also the access coming over the bridge where the light is by Market Basket? Are there going to be two accesses there? And personally, not from the committee, but personally, I think that would be key, because that gives the people on the path a detour to get around the construction. A lot of people use the entire length of the path. 27 years I've been there on that path. And even people walking and running go beyond the bridge on a regular basis. So that would give them the access around. And I agree with the select board. We don't know what it's going to look like. Even with the two accesses, is it going to be safe to come out onto Sandwich Road and bike or walk to the next access point? But other than that, we all agreed that with the flashing light in our traffic pattern, especially during the traffic in the summertime and holidays, you get people that are stuck behind the long line sitting there, and they come in the opposite way. They finally get around someone and zoom down, and now you'll be having people crossing between cars, basically, to get across the street and stepping out in front of a car that's going faster than it should be. So I think even though that light may be safe and used around the nation, I'm assuming you're going by what the traffic speed limit is. But around here, it's, you know, people are rushing, and I don't think anybody from the town thought that it was the right way to go. Do you want me to read did they get the recommendations from our committee?
If you wanted to read them, sure,
I can just read the bullet
That might be
points.
great for the public thing.
So without the parking across the street, it's a post office in that area, but the town owns all along the field and the courts. There's a little caveat of the mail truck coming down and being able to get in and turn around. I think generally it happens before the baseball games. That area, that whole village, does not get mail delivery, and everybody has to go to the post office to pick up their mail. So there's a little concern with, you know, people parking there for the path, but people park there now to go fishing, to get to the canal. It'd be nice to have them have a safe way to cross with the trains coming. But I think with the demolition of those big chunky bleachers that sit right on the first baseline, so if they're gone and let's say the bulkhead's there, there's a restroom and facilities also. So that would be more parking space if those were removed. The relocation of the utilities right next to the restrooms, there's the
Transformer right there.
yes. So if that could be moved to another location, I think Katie had an idea of that area could be used for parking. The construction of an ADA accessible walkway to the third baseline bleachers. So there's call it the away team sits there. It's a recessed wall that has steps down, but it's hard to get there. It's you know, if you're not very mobile. So a walkway would be great for people to come in and park in that lot and be able to get through those bleachers, because you know we can't sit on the opposite side. Right? Expansion of accessible seating accommodations along the third baseline, including consideration for shaded spectator seating. Completion of comprehensive drainage assessment for Keith Field site. That's behind those, where those bleachers are now, the concrete ones. You could ice skate there in the winter. It really just, it's a lake. So if there was a way to get rid of that, because you know we play in the rain too. Because it is New England. And people, yeah, if it was all flooded, people may not park there. And we design and maximize the existing Keith Field parking area to improve capacity. So I think even going along the fence, I guess if we worked with the post office to maybe a time that says when the truck can get in and turn around and get my mail. You know, I think we could fit more cars in there and not have to have the kids crossing the street.
Can I ask a question? So I went and like walked around this area because I wasn't that familiar with it. So next to the post office, like when you look in the post office on the left, there's like an area that says no parking anytime. Is that so that posters the delivery?
There's a telephone pole, and about halfway down the tennis court, maybe a quarter down the tennis court. So the post office has like the easement to get in. They deliver the mail in the back.
Yeah.
So the truck comes down, and it's not a huge tractor trailer, but a big box, you know, almost tractor trailer size. So they come down around the back, and that gives them room to turn around and come back out.
So that's what it is.
So that's what it's for.
Okay.
And you know, there was one there at 10 o'clock this morning when I went by. And usually about 1, maybe 3 o'clock for the latest one. I'd have to double check, but I think they come twice a day. But to be able to get in, turn around, and come out. You know, sometimes people don't pay attention to that. But I think if I'm sure they could work something out if there were set up parking spaces along that court, and then a sign saying that, you know, don't park here between these hours, then that would probably work. During the weekend, the post office closes at 10:30. They're not open on Sunday. If there's a tournament going on the field, nobody's at the post office. At night, the post office is, you get in to get your mail till 6:30, so it's about when the games start. But, you know, if I was driving my car there, I would double park and get my mail and leave. So I don't think that's a problem.
I just, as a follow-up, I just want to say, living in an area where you do not get mail delivered to your physical street address is common here. And in the age after the Patriot Act, it has been hugely difficult because, you know, you have to use your physical address, but then you can't get the mail delivered there. So that whole dynamic, and that was an issue for the Cantonment, like, as discussions because of the Cantonment post office.
Right.
There's no mail delivery. You have to have parking for people to get their mails.
Right.
Thank you for explaining. I appreciate that.
Anyone else from our committee? Any comments, thoughts? Did you notice anything?
No.
No?
There's a question. Like everyone else in here, safety is a priority. I don't know what determines, placement of crosswalks or lights, but something that has to be considered is not just the year-round, but also the increase in seasonal traffic, especially from the lights west of the bridge, heading east. And coming over that small rise, people have increased speeds already. There's also been a huge increase in commercial traffic for many reasons. Come off of that first exit and taking the right into the sandwich. My questions to the DOT: what determines the location of crosswalks? And also, any decisions made today or moving forward regarding Keith Field in that area, do they affect or steer the decisions on the north side of the canal and vice versa? Do any decisions after the fact on the north side affect what has already been considered or approved on the south side of the canal?
I'm not clear on the north side, south side, what do you mean by that? Do you mean,
The construction
do they
activity.
affect decisions that have already been made?
Correct.
Well, I think it's fair to say that in and around the decisions that we make over time around Keith Field, in Sandwich Road in cooperation with the town, select board, and recreation committee may alter the design that we have in mind for this area. The design is ongoing. Is that what you're getting at?
Yes. To get back to the original question, what determines the location of crosswalks and lights?
Yeah, so what we're looking at now is, first, the quote-unquote mid-block that we were proposing previously was strictly because that parking lot was there. So with the removal of that parking lot, we would not be proposing a crosswalk at that location. So there would be a crosswalk at Adams Street. So if you're going from east to west, there'd be a crosswalk at Adams Street. And then we're proposing a connector road between Cranberry Highway and Sandwich Road, which would be signalized, and there'd be a crosswalk there. And then when you continue with Mid-Cape Connector, there'd be a crosswalk and a signal there. So there'd be 3 along that section as well.
Jim Linsky, Recreation Department, Recreation Committee. I just need some clarification for myself. I want to make sure I understand what's happening right now. Along third base line, there is unofficial parking. People park face in off of Sandwich Road up against the fence.
Yep.
So, and right now there's no curb, so it's just goes straight in on gravel. So it's my understanding that all of that's going to disappear, and Sandwich Road will be improved in such a way that there'll be a curb, and all those unofficial parking spots will disappear.
I believe that's correct.
And how many unofficial cars are there at any given time?
30.
Well, I think that's what they said there's space for, there's not, I'd say 20.
Okay. So that's a big part of the ask. People park there even though they're not supposed to, but they'll still be coming. And now we're looking for some help on where to have additional parking. That's what this letter is all about. Help us along the first baseline to give people places to park.
We thought the letter was great, and, we're starting to look into it already. Obviously, we can't do much until we sit down and meet and talk and really understand what's important to you folks and how things, ultimately end up. But it looked like it could really help us fit a lot more parking right there, right next to the field, with no need to cross. So we're kind of excited about it. When seeing that letter, it looked like there were a lot of good ideas there that would open up some space.
I do want to clarify, if I may. What we're asking for with the letter that we asked the town to sign is not to sign off on the whole plan for Keith Field. The letter confirms that the town agrees with the pedestrian bicycle lane. And we've heard from many of you that you support that. That's what we're looking for with a signature on that letter. The rest of it, what we're saying is, we're not going anywhere. We would like to keep engaging with you because we heard some really great ideas for it. And we can't build or plan for the bike link without the town's official concurrence with it. But that not only confirms that it will take place, but it enables us to move on and engage with the recreation committee and the select board about the ideas that we read in the letter and other ideas that may come forward.
Peter?
I have no problem with the request of concurrence for the 4S to minimis impact determination, because I realize what it's for. And to me, this is going to be a fluid process throughout. Anything that's decided today is not going to be the end game here. This is going to be ongoing for a long time, and it'll be between the rec committee, the select board itself, and the town staff. So this is going to be something that is going to be ongoing, and it may change 10 times before we get to a final proposal. So, I just think if we keep on working together and get eventually we'll come to what's for the best for that area of town and for the residents. And that's the way I'm leaning towards. Yes.
So, like we said, we don't see the plan for what Sandwich Road will look like. Is the plan to try and fit some type of bike lane and a sidewalk for people walking? Because those are two different speeds. And the people that if they're parking down now on the first baseline, down at the post office, and they want to get over to the bleachers, or the players that like to go out along third base to throw the pitches, which is not the best, but, is, what are you planning it to look like along Sandwich Road to get, basically to the path from, say, home plate?
I think that's part of what we'd like to be talking about. There's, a huge array of different things that could occur, and to sit down and map it out, how that integrates with what the entrance to the parking area may look like, and how cars parking and people walking, and how everybody's all interacting. That'd all be part of it.
So I think that there's really two sections where you'd have the people that are parking to go to the ball field, whether they're going to the first baseline or the third baseline, and then, if someone wants to go from there to the path, they would get there differently, probably, especially if they're a bike on. I guess we'd really need to know like where, beyond the path, where's that road going to go? I can't imagine a bike lane along the entire length of Sandwich Road would not make sense, because that's kind of a crazy road to bike on, especially when you have the canal path there. So I'm not sure.
No, we are giving bike accommodations, all, the whole length of Sandwich.
The whole length of Sandwich Road? Wow. That would be good,
Yeah.
for the true bikers.
Do you have any other comments?
I have a comment. All right, so I feel that the select board should have our town council review this de minimis letter before we sign off on it. What this letter says is not as it was characterized. The letter says that the impact on the Keith Field recreation for the construction of the Sagamore Bridge is de minimis. It does not say the construction of the temporary bike path is de minimis. And the pictures that accompany the letter do not show all the impacts. So we might be having a future conversation, but if the select board signs off on this letter, I don't know what ability we have to have any leverage for what we need to accomplish. So personally, I would like to have town council review this before we sign off on it. I do have a question specifically about the construction of the bike path, if I may. So it shows the bike path and it shows the Keith Field impact. Is the area on figure 2 that shows the bike path, is that an area for the bike path outside the existing chain link fence in that area? So when you're looking at the field, to the left of the chain link fence, there's a lot of trees, and apparently that's all town-owned property. So whether it's part of Keith Field or a part of it, that's town property. Is this area 12 feet wide bike path all outside of that existing chain link fence, or is that chain link fence going to be moved, or?
There's double chain link fences. Are you talking about left field to the canal?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm talking, if I'm looking towards the canal, where this bike path is gonna go.
Down the third baseline.
Yes, so.
Down the third
so-
baseline, there's a chain link fence.
There's two.
Okay.
And, well, part of one didn't get put back after an older project. So there's two, and I believe that the access paths to the canal would be going in between those two fences, where the flagpole is.
Right, well, you leave.
No,
Yeah, or-
That's
Yeah,
where
that's
it's
right.
going.
So there's two fences that
There's-
create that
They
area.
moved in, they shortened the field a little bit, I don't know, so they could get home runs or something, I don't know why. But,
It's okay.
Still a regulation,
yeah, so
300
there's a
foot
parking lot for
fence,
Pearpoint, has most of the fence up, not all of it went back up. And then the fence that marks the end of the field, the home run fence.
So that,
And
those, whatever existing fences that should be there, I don't see the fences. When existing fences should be there currently, are not, those lines are not to be affected, and the 12-foot path is going to fit within that. So that is all within the Keith Field area.
Yes.
Yeah, One thing I did want to mention, so the letter in round 4F, and you can correct me, but when we talk about impacts, it's not the impacts of the bridge construction of the project at large. The 4F only pertains to the town-owned recreation property, which is Keith Field. So that letter's only talking about what that impact is, which is, because we're between those two fences and it is town-owned land and it's contained for recreational use, it's that impact that letter pertains to.
And that's not clear when reading the letter, which is why I'd like our town council to look at it, to see that that is clear I like things to be clear in the letter, this is what we're saying.
And to further clarify, in order to build that link, we need the town's concurrence, we can't
Right.
do
No,
it
I
on our
understand
own. And then that opens up the broader discussion about what other improvements can we make in the area.
Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, I would agree with MJ. I think we're just about there. Yeah, it's really just the language of the letter, and then also my concern about that restore the landscape, that just have some notation in there that there will be further discussions on developing that, and maybe even flush out some of the newest ideas, and they can be inserted as well. But have council look at it.
Yeah, make sure the language is clear.
Yeah, just to make sure we're not.
Madam Chair, so I do want to caution the select board not to necessarily build in direct reference to any particular recommendation into this letter, because we need flexibility on the ground. This letter is specifically and intentionally about the shared use path connection, because that design, once this happens, is going to be locked in, essentially. But locally, we need flexibility, and we can't go through the process of amending this if we need to move things around. So I would be careful about adding, just be aware and cautious of adding anything to this, because you'd be limiting our ability to be flexible in the future.
Yeah, and my concern, I guess, is flexibility as well, and that's why that one section about the restoring the landscape, I'm just,
So this
Don't wanna get trapped
this is
in that.
essentially a permit.
right.
Okay, this is a federal permit. That's the way we should be thinking about it. There's no flexibility here. So if the direction is you want us to be continuing to, kind of flesh out these ideas and work cooperatively to make these improvements, absolutely, we will do that. But putting it in this letter is not the way to do it. So if you think about this as a permit, it's a very difficult permit to change. And you have to remember, this is not something that's necessarily been well explained to us locally, but we're very used to dealing with DOT projects that go through the normal design build process. So we see 100% plans, and we are used to working in a situation where the plans are the plans and there's no flexibility. But we have to remember this is a design build, and the plans at this point are still like 25% maybe. So there's a lot of details that we can't expect to understand until the contractor has been selected. So this is a unique procurement model that none of us are really comfortable with. I guess I should say, it's my opinion, we're not necessarily very comfortable with, because we've always been told by DOT, well, the designs are done, we can't change it now. That's the party line, right? So now we're being told, well, because it's design build, the designs aren't done, and we're not gonna know what the designs are until a couple of years from now. And that's true. It's frustrating, but it's true. So we have to remember this project is not like the typical D5 projects that we see. So I'm leery too, frankly, about giving up leverage, but I feel like in this particular case, because this is a permit requirement at the environmental level, not at the construction level, that we have to trust DOT a little bit, which is difficult for so many reasons. But we have to trust that, we're not going anywhere, and they're not going anywhere, and we're gonna be stuck together for like 12 years on this. So, ideally, it would be better if all of this was worked out in advance and we could, be very clear about all of the arrangements. But with a federal environmental permit in a design-build project, it's just not feasible.
And Madam Chairman, if I could add to the tax administrator's part, in regards to the 4F letter, which we're discussing today, and the shared use path, and it truly is limited, and this is an interesting situation because it is going through a final EIS and an entire EIS process and a record of decision process. And the 4F component is a component of the record of decision. So our Federal Highway Administration cannot sign off on the record of decision until all of the 4F components are completed. But as Lisa Pajewski mentioned, that is just related to the shared use path, and we do plan to continue working as we go forward on all other aspects. And also in regards to a final EIS, Mass DOT doesn't often have to go this route with the federal highway. We generally only have what's called an environmental assessment. But for a project of this size, they want an extra review. So for the NEPA process, which we're finishing up very soon, they've asked us to do both a draft environmental impact statement and finally EIS and record decision. So this sign off would just specific to this shared use path.
What I requested was that our town council review the letter
Yes.
to assure us that it only
Yes.
has to do with the construction of the shared use path.
And
If our council says that he's comfortable that this letter
Yes.
specifically is related to that,
Yes.
I'm comfortable with the letter. If town council says that the construction operation of the Cape Cod bridges would result in the use of the Keithfield Recreation Area, which is section 4F property, for which the town of Bourne is the official jurisdiction.
Yes.
That makes it sound like the whole construction of the Cape Cod bridges is being addressed in this letter. So if town council, I'm not asking for a lot of detail. I understand that we don't know what we're gonna do with the recreation. So we can't put any of that in the letter. But we can make sure that the letter is specific to this shared use path, use of Keith Field, so that we're comfortable and you're comfortable. And, 6 years from now, it's not, wow, you signed off on that de minimis, and yeah. Yeah, so I'm cautious.
Yes, I think we were clear on that. Okay, thank you. Peter, go ahead.
That's okay. I'm gonna try a motion here, and you can shoot me down if it's not right.
Thank you.
But
Appreciate it.
I make a motion that we concur with the determination that use will not adversely affect the activities, features, and attributes that qualify the resources for protection under section 4, subject to concurrence from town council. So if town council comes in and tells us it's okay, then we're not waiting around another couple of weeks for Maureen to sign a letter. If town council find there are issues, we don't go for, we have to wait and look at this further.
But I want to know that this letter says that.
Yeah, fine, yes.
That's what it says.
Right. I think that's what he was trying to phrase in his motion.
Right.
He may not have
Okay, so Peter, we have a motion from Peter. Do we have a second?
With those
So continue
reassurances?
on.
I don't know what the motion is.
Say the motion again, Peter, go ahead. Repeat the motion from
He's
this
just
mentioned
reading,
agenda.
The motion says, I hereby, that the select board hereby concurs with the determination that quote-unquote use will not adversely affect the activities, features, and attributes that qualify the resource for protection under section 4F, subject to town council concurrence.
That the use described, that the use,
Yeah,
what use? See the letter, that's what I didn't.
well, that's why I say town council's concurrence.
The use as described in the draft de minimis impact determination letter dated May 15th would.
Okay, do you wanna,
Yeah, that's fine, you can amend it.
okay, do you wanna reread it, or do we understand what
I
it's?
think we know
Okay.
what the intent is.
Marlene, you got that, do you understand what that
It
said?
says,
Do you understand the intent?
Well,
Well, why don't we see if we have a second? And then-
yes, there we go.
I'll second.
All right, so we have.
So I would like to confirm that the select board is authorizing me to sign the May 15th, 2026 Cape Cod Bridges, Section 4F, de minimis impact determination request for concurrence, Keep Field Recreation Area, Bourne, Mass. Letter. Subject to confirmation that I receive from town council that the subject of the letter is specific to the shared use path only. Is that the board's understanding?
Yes.
yes,
Correct, we have MJ's Ray shaking her head.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
that
that,
is, yes.
Yeah, my wordsmith, Philly, so you can.
and the select board received that confirmation from the town council also.
Is that clear? Okay, so we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion?
John York.
John, please.
I don't-
I'm a little concerned, there's still a gray area in what you're talking about, asking the town council to review. So if you limit the letter to saying that the construction of a shared use path between those two fences is a de minimis impact, I'm not sure that gives the Bridges program everything they need, because what if there is any other impact? Has 4F been satisfied for Keith Field? So if it turns out that there's, let's say the traffic flow on Sandwich Road as a result of the rebuilding of the Sagamore South interchange is such that it impacts the operations of Keith Field, then I would think that they would need a separate letter saying that we have determined that that will also have de minimis impact. So to say that signing this letter that only addresses that one particular impact will satisfy Federal Highway for their needs to know that Section 4F processes are complete, I don't see that that's the case. So when you ask town council to review it, you might want to ask him about that as well.
I'm going to ask the select board here, because I do not recommend that our town council and that our legal budget is used to review MassDOT's entire 4F permitting process. With all due respect to the comment, town council, I don't even know how long that would take.
Sure.
And that's not that's not the town of Bourne's council's role.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure if that's our burden.
Yeah, correct.
I understand the question.
If there were another section F is required, then they'll come to us for another section F required. I think, I just want to know that what we're signing off on
It's
is
for
what we
the
say we're
path.
signing off on.
Correct.
Yes.
What the board has been asked to sign off on. Right now, this is all you have been asked to sign off on.
Right. Yes, I agree.
All right, so we have a motion, a second, with no further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no abstained. All right, so move.
Motion to adjourn.
No
Second.
additional
Is
comments?
there
from
any
anyone?
other discussion about?
Yeah, I know, good for you, Petey. We did,
Like,
it did
I'm outta
say,
here.
it did say 3:30, so we're, we're gonna keep everybody on track.
So what, so if I may, what are the
Yes.
takeaways?
Yes.
One, concurrence with, approval of town council with the letter. And two, that you're going to take into consideration and do some research and work on the request by the recreation committee and coming back to us at a future date with, how that all works. And you can, like, move that on me.
She's funny at that.
It works on tracing paper.
Anyhow.
Can I ask to have an agenda item on our brief select board meeting next Tuesday, just for an update as to, so that we don't lose sight of this, that if we do need to have more discussion, that it's on the agenda.
I would say if we could have some follow-up workshops, just to stay in touch with these issues and for the other concerns in the community and the other uses of the service road and the canal, this is on everyone's mind.
I think an update from, town council's been able to review it. I realize it is in the morning for the weekend, so,
But
Posting goes out.
I appreciate you working with us.
Yeah, go ahead.
So just a response to the moving of home base, the viewing that's best done at baseball is along the two baselines, first and third.
Right.
And if you move it anywhere else, you don't have that viewing. And in addition, the foul balls mostly go behind them. So you would have balls going onto the track and probably kids running out where they shouldn't to get the balls, especially when it starts getting dark. The other thing I just had, there was a comment about putting landscape back. Does that include the flagpole that's in between the two fences at the end? I don't know if you can see it. You can't really, right? Yeah. Oh, you were almost there.
Oh, yeah.
Up towards the canal more? Yeah,
it's
right,
out there.
right there. There's a flagpole right there. It's the only flagpole that's fairly new. And
Yeah, it was.
would that be?
If we affected it, we
Recess.
would replace it.
Because you're gonna have a flagpole.
Yes.
Support.
All right.
At the show.
All right, now Peter's
I
have.
like this picture, I would like to have this picture.
Motion to adjourn, Jean, a second.
Second. Second, all right, motion to adjourn, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're adjourned, thank you.